what this video is all about. We are going to be ranking the best remote careers from S tier, which is the best, all the way down to F tier, which is the worst. Now, remote jobs have always been somewhat popular, but they haven't really been offered all that much until
global health emergency.
2020 happened, right? So the pandemic happened and just about every job went remote. And people started realizing that a lot of these jobs that before companies thought you had to be at the office in order to get done could be done remotely, or at least 80 to 90% of the job could be done from the comfort of your own home or while you're traveling. And so there has never been a better time to get a remote job. And it doesn't matter whether you're somebody who wants to travel all the time, that's very common, or you're somebody who just wants to stay home so that you can save money on gas and food. There are certain types of jobs out there that are really easy to do remotely, and there's other types of jobs that you hear are easy to do remotely, but they actually aren't. And so I'm kind of going to be breaking down all of these on this list. Now, I am going to keep this video short and sweet, not really going to go too much in depth on these, so if you appreciate that, go ahead, gently tap the like button. Let's aim for 1,000 likes on this video, and let's go ahead and jump right into it. So first one we're going to talk about is accountant, and this is something like as simple as bookkeeping all the way up to more complicated accounting. And in my opinion, a lot of different types of accounting absolutely can be done remotely. But at the same time, not everybody can become an accountant. So with that being said, if you are an accountant, it is a job that can be done remotely. This one is going to go into A tier. Next on the list is customer service representative. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking this is a terrible job. You know, you don't want to have to be like a telemarketer or somebody who deals with Karens all day long if they're, calling in for technical support. And I get it. This can be kind of a pain in the butt job. But with that being said, this one is incredibly easy to get a remote job with. Like if you put your mind to it, like right now, you started applying today, you could probably get a job as a customer service representative with zero experience, 0 degree, like no qualifications whatsoever in less than a month. And you have an especially big advantage if you have a Western accent. So if you're somebody who has an American accent, for instance, you have a massive advantage here because they're gonna pay you more just because of the fact that when people call in, they would rather speak to somebody who, has their same dialect and speaks their same accent.
English, do you speak it? Yes.
Now, there are other positions that are kind of the same thing, but you're more dealing with other companies or high value clients that you can move into from this position, and those do pay better. But with that being said, this is a really good, get your foot in the door, entry-level job that's gonna allow you to do the whole remote thing, travel or stay from home if you want to. So I'm gonna put customer service representative in B tier. Next on the list is going to be cybersecurity. So this is a phenomenal career. Takes a little bit longer to get into than some of the other like entry-level jobs that I talk about a lot on this channel, but if you can get into it, there is a ton of opportunity. This one goes into S tier. Next one on the list is going to be data analyst. Now, there are a lot of great job opportunities for data analysts that you can do remotely. Not all of them, but there are a good amount. And data analyst has a ton of opportunity, both vertical growth as well as horizontal growth. It's also relatively easy to get into just because of the fact that there is so much demand for the skill set. So this one goes into S tier. Next one on the list is going to be data entry. Now, this one is a little controversial. I really don't like data entry. Like to me, doing data entry is almost like hell, right? I would hate to just have to do the same thing over and over again, just putting something from one sheet onto another all day long. It would be terrible for me. But with that being said, this is a really entry-level remote job that you can get just about right away. It's super easy to get into it. You don't really need any experience or any skills or anything like that. You're also not really gonna get any experience or any skills if you do this job. But if you really need to get a job super fast that's a remote job, this is an option. But with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and put it into D tier. I could see, an argument for maybe C tier here, but I just really don't like data entry. I'm putting it into D tier. Next one on the list is going to be digital marketer. This is one of my favorite careers because it is a really good entry-level career you can get into without a college degree and without any experience. There is a massive amount of demand for digital marketers, and you've probably seen a few of the videos on my channel where I actually interview digital marketers that have gone through my friend Seth's course. And there is a reason why he has thousands of reviews on his Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. It's undeniable that this guy knows how to get people into digital marketing at the entry level. All these people you can just look up on LinkedIn and they'd be more than happy to talk to you because he did such an amazing job helping them out. And if you are interested in digital marketing, I will put a link to a free masterclass that he does that basically tells you what it's like to be a digital marketer, the different verticals, and whether or not it's a good career for you. You can check that out down in the description as well as the pinned comment. But yeah, digital marketer, phenomenal career, definitely going into S tier. Next one on the list is going to be engineer. Now, this is a great career. I love engineering as a career. I also love it as a college degree. But with that being said, as a remote job, little bit difficult, right? It kind of depends on what type of engineer you are, of course, but typically engineers do kind of have to be in person in order to get most of their work done. So engineer is going to go into C tier. Next one on the list is going to be graphic designer. So this is basically somebody who designs different artwork or marketing material. Now this one can be pretty decent if you do it as a freelancer, but in terms of a remote job, not amazing. Like, it's pretty tough to find good, steady work in a remote job as a graphic designer. So if you can find it, that's great, but it's gonna be pretty tough. This one is gonna go into D tier. Next one on the list is going to be health careers. Now, this one is probably gonna be pretty obvious, but health careers are relatively difficult to do remotely. You can do them remotely. There are options for doing it. I have done it myself, but typically health careers are something where you kind of have to be there in person. Of course, there are exceptions to this. You know, there's a lot of like telehealth stuff that's happening in the medical industry, but overall, I'm gonna put this one into F tier. Next one on the list is going to be instructional design. And this is a really cool new type of design that has gotten especially popular in the last few years since the pandemic. So instructional design is essentially where you design different online educational resources. So if somebody's trying to answer a question, for instance, and they get the wrong answer, you would program into the instructional design interface to have the right answer pop up and maybe a link to a video or something like that that explains how they can get to that answer. And so not only do you have to have a little bit of artistic side because you would be designing the whole interface, but on top of that, you have to have a little bit of programming knowledge as well, because the program needs to know what to do in case the person gets the problem right or wrong, etc. So instructional design is a really good one, super hot since the pandemic. I might bring somebody on the channel who does instructional design, a good friend of mine. He's making incredible money doing instructional design. But I will say my friend that's making really good money doing it is doing it as a freelancer and not in a 9-to-5 job. But with that being said, still a lot of demand for this one. Definitely something you can do remotely. This one is going into A tier. Next one on the list is going to be information technology. Now, there are some IT jobs where you absolutely do have to be there in person in order to do the job, but there are so many types of IT jobs where you don't. And so for that reason, this one is phenomenal for this type of thing. A lot of the time, IT jobs are, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but a lot of the time IT jobs, you're kind of waiting for something wrong to happen. And so you're almost like on call and they're relatively chill. So some of the people I know who work in IT tell me they work maybe 2 hours a day in an 8-hour day. So yeah, definitely something you can do remotely. IT goes into S tier. Next one on the list is going to be a medical coder. This is basically somebody who takes the notes that doctors take when they are seeing a patient and they translate those into medical codes, put them into systems to make it more easy to kind of like share information with other healthcare providers, build a patient, share information with other companies, like if they have insurance or anything like that. So this is definitely something you can do remotely. It also requires a little bit of skill. I mean, it's not like a whole lot of skill, but it does require a little bit of know-how. It doesn't pay all that well, but overall I'll put this one into C tier. Next one on the list is going to be project manager. And depending on the type of company that you work at, especially if you're in something like software, project manager can be done remotely. Not always, but it can be done. And to be honest, I want to put this one into S tier, but just because of the fact that there are a lot of different types of jobs out there that aren't done remotely, I'm gonna go ahead and put this one into A tier. Next one on the list is real estate agent. Now, real estate is awesome. I'm a big fan of it. I think it's a great investment. Becoming a real estate agent can also be a really good choice for the right type of person. But with that being said, doing real estate remotely is a little bit tough, right? You really want to have that face time with people because they are entrusting you to either buy or sell their house. That is a massive decision in their life, and it's very difficult for them to make that decision with somebody that they're not, sitting sitting down next to or standing next to face to face. So overall, I'm gonna go ahead and put real estate agent into C tier. Next one on the list is going to be a recruiter. And this is somebody who works for companies and they go out and they find people to fill specific positions. So a company might need a software developer, for instance. You'd have a recruiter that goes and finds software developers, make sure they find a really good one to fill a certain position. Then if the software developer ends up getting the job, the recruiter ends up getting a commission for that. This is a job that in many cases can absolutely be done remotely. It's also a job where you can make a good amount of money. It's not a crazy amount, but a really good, solid amount. So I'm gonna go ahead and put recruiter into A tier. Next one on the list is going to be service industry. So I think this one's pretty obvious. You know, you can't really serve people remotely. And even if you could do it, it's just kind of a thankless job in general. So this one is gonna go into F tier. Next one on the list is software developer. Phenomenal career, phenomenal job. You can absolutely do it remotely. It's getting a little bit harder to break into software development. It used to be much easier. It's getting harder and harder to do it, but it's still not impossible to do it. Many people even break into it without getting a degree. They do it by going to boot camps, self-teaching, making their own projects, etc. So software developer goes into S tier. Next one on the list is going to be teacher. Now, believe it or not, depending on the type of teacher, you can do teaching remotely in many cases. But with that being said, now that everybody went back to school, it is becoming more and more rare. But I remember when I went to Puerto Rico, for instance, I actually ran into a few teachers who were staying at the same hostel as me. So yeah, teacher is definitely one that can be done remotely in certain cases. But overall, I'm gonna put this one into B tier. Next one on the list is going to be tech sales, another one that's phenomenal. You can get into it without any experience or any college degree. Phenomenal career choice. There are people who are like 5 years in making well over $200,000 a year, people who are like 10 years into their career making over $500,000 a year. I'm gonna be interviewing both of these people on the channel and they should be posting here pretty soon if they haven't posted already. But yeah, tech sales, you can absolutely do it remotely. Phenomenal career. This one goes into S tier. Next on the list is the job you already have. Believe it or not, many jobs out there, even if you're really skeptical about them being able to be done remotely, many of them actually can be done remotely, or at least 80% of the job can be done. I've seen some really surprising examples of this where jobs where you'd never even expect it to be done remotely can be done just because of the fact that they just focus on the part that can be done remotely and they just do that more. So yeah, this one is gonna go into C tier. Always something you should consider. Next one on the list is going to be trade careers. I think this one's pretty obvious. You gotta go into people's houses if you're a plumber or HVAC technician or something like that. This one goes into F tier. Next one on the list is going to be transcriptionist. This is very similar to the medical coder, but typically doctors will talk into a recorder and they'll talk really fast, especially if they're surgeons. If you're in the medical field, you know what I'm talking about. And then somebody else will actually take that down and they'll translate it into, plain English because surgeons don't speak real English. So yeah, this is another one, very low barrier to entry. It's a job you can get very easily. It's also a job that, you aren't gonna learn too much from probably, but you can do it remotely in many cases. So I'm gonna put this one into C tier. Next one on the list is going to be tutor, and tutoring is surprisingly good. Like I did tutoring during college and I made incredibly good money doing it. Now it's something you can't really scale very easily, unfortunately, but tutoring is becoming more and more common to be done remotely. And it's especially effective if you find something very niche and valuable to tutor for. So for instance, what I tutored for was the pharmacy school entrance exam, also known as the PCAT. And I studied really hard on the PCAT. I did a lot of research on it and I found some really good resources to study with, and I was able to get a super good score on it. And then I wanted to teach other people how they can do the same. And people were paying me $80 an hour, sometimes even over $100 an hour for me to tutor them. So yeah, tutor can be phenomenal. You can also do it remotely in many cases. This one is gonna go into B tier. Next one on the list is going to be video editor. Now this is one that's kind of saturated, I'm not gonna lie. You really have to, if you're living in the West, be a phenomenal video editor in order to get steady work. Because the truth is, anybody can just hire somebody from the rest of the world relatively easily to edit their videos. But if you can find a specific niche that you're very good at video editing in, you can make good money here. So this is more of a freelance one in my opinion, but video editor, I'm gonna go ahead and put it into C tier. Next one on the list is going to be a virtual administrative assistant. So this is somebody who basically just helps somebody else, usually somebody who's kind of high ranking within a company, maybe a CEO or a manager, something like that, with all of their day-to-day administrative virtual tasks. So overall, I'm gonna put this one into C tier. Next one on the list is web designer, and this could be either UX or UI or a combination of both. This is a really good one, and in some cases you can do it remotely. A lot of the time they will want you to come into the office because it's kind of a creative thing and it's nice to like have that collaboration, but in many cases you actually can do a lot of the work remotely. So this one is gonna go into A tier. Next one on the list is web developer. This one, in my opinion, is the much easier version of software development. You can break into it much more easily than a lot of the other verticals within software development. And you can definitely do this one remotely without a doubt. So web developer is gonna go into S tier. And now we have writer. This is one where, again, it's kind of saturated because you can easily just hire people from foreign countries to do this. And it is becoming more of kind of a freelance thing. It's very difficult to get a full-time steady employment, like a full-time steady job as a writer. If you do want to get paid really well as a writer, it's more of like a freelance type of thing, and you have to get really good at it.